Alrighty, we should be going. Let me close out the music here, and we are live. All right, mic check, Chuck.
What's up? What's up?
All right, can we get a grand rising in the chat? You can hear us all right. B Crumbs, shout out for the sub already. Start that hype train. You love to see it. All right, good. We got a grand rising in the chat. Two grand risings. Perfect. Sounds like it's all good on the audio side. Cool. Well, welcome to the first official Learn AI live session. We've got our special guest today, Chuck, founder of Remix. I am Firestorm, if you don't know me, project lead over at Neo Tokyo. The VOD will be up on the Neo Tokyo Twitch after this is done. So if you missed some of it, you can always check back in for the recording. But we'll get right into it here as we're starting a couple minutes late and we have a lot to talk about today. Chuck, I'm excited to learn from an expert on AI game dev. I've been dabbling myself, so I have a bit of newbie background. I feel like I'll have some of the right questions that some of the newer vibe coders are dealing with these days. But maybe give background on yourself first, how you got into the game dev space, Web3 space, however you want to spin it. Love to learn a bit about you first.
Yeah, man. I feel yeah. So my background was as in finance and accounting. I did that about 12 years ago, so in like 2013, 2014, and I was getting pretty burnt out on accounting and finance, and I really wanted to get into something more exciting. And I was kind of like Silicon Valley was really booming, and I really just wanted to be in tech and in software. And so coding boot camps started becoming a thing where I lived in Denver, Colorado. And so I went to a coding boot camp and I ended up meeting some guys that were super into Bitcoin at the time. They actually convinced me to put my savings that I was using to get myself through school into Bitcoin, and the exchange I put it on got hacked that same night. And so I basically got rugged on day one of
I
crypto.
thought you were going to say that established your generational wealth and you're able to retire. No, it went the opposite way.
Unfortunately, yeah, I bought I think I had like $2,000 or $3,000 in my name. I put it all on Bitcoin. So I bought like 5 or 6 Bitcoin at the time and then lost it all like same day. And I was like, this is the stupidest thing ever. I don't know why crypto's so dumb. And then it's like a few months later, I kind of got really burnt out. Like I just thought crypto was insane, and then I went to an Ethereum meetup. And once I learned about smart contracts, I was like hooked again. I just felt like smart contracts was really going to change everything. And so after that, I went and worked at ShapeShift with Eric Voorhees. Built a product there called CoinCap, which was like the number two pricing service behind CoinMarketCap for a long time. So I did that for a few years, but I was always really excited about the intersection of Web3 and gaming. It just felt like that's where so much opportunity was going to be. And it just felt very symbiotic, the relationship of NFTs and tokens, and felt like it could solve a lot of real problems with gaming. And so my brother and I co-founded our first gaming company back in like 2019, which was an esports wagering platform where you could all put money into a smart contract, go, pay each other out. I think that was way too early for that product to exist. I remember we were working with some like Web2 creators at the time, and we had to tell people like what MetaMask was. Like we were still doing everything on mainnet because that was like the only real place that you could do stuff. And so it was, yeah, the idea was too early for what it was. And then we did that for a few years, kind of got burnt out. The product never really went anywhere. And then at the end of last year, we were basically starting something new and looking for our next thing. And we just got really excited by making our own game this time. Instead of building gaming infrastructure, we really just wanted to make our own games. And so we started leaning into like some of these tailwinds we saw forming with AI and crypto and stuff just getting a lot easier. So we can dive into that in a minute. But yeah, I've basically been building Remix for the last couple of years now.
Love it. We have some shared Denver history. I lived there for a few years as well. And the
Oh,
ETH
awesome.
community is strong because of ETH Denver in that city. So not surprised to hear that.
Yeah, it was weird that it just became like a crypto hub for like some really weird reason. Yeah, largely because like ETH Denver and John Palmer and those guys just happened to be there. But yeah, it just was such a random place to live, and then just happened to have a really big crypto presence there.
Love it. So you started working on your own game. I'm sure you started running into some of the challenges with manually creating a game. So was that some of your inspiration for the automation side and getting plugged into the AI gaming dev space?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of making our own game was just to prove to ourselves that we could. I feel like if you there's a lot of this points my brother and I were since we didn't work at Activision or Nintendo or like have this pedigree, it almost felt like we weren't allowed to make games. It feels like there's kind of this stigma around like you have to have like done it before. Like there's kind of this like kind of almost like a little bit of self-righteousness from people who work at those studios. Like if you feel like you have to be qualified to be allowed to make a good game. And so Arcaster was starting to get really big, and they ended up launching this technology called Frames, which it really allowed you to embed apps into a social media feed. And so we built a gaming product around that. And it just was like the most fun I'd ever had in my career. It was a really like fun time building the game and doing the game design, and it did really well. And when we were building that product called Far World, we ended up getting really excited by this other idea called Farcade, which was basically just uh like I would say just a super modern, mini clip or something like that around AI generated games. And the real idea was, to your point, was we saw AI getting a lot better, and we just wanted to have AI help us build a bunch of games. And so we really thought we were going to be building and creating all the games. But as like we started to learn AI a lot more and we saw how much better AI was getting, we realized that anybody's going to be able to make games. And that's really what spawned the idea for Remix.
Love it. Yeah. I mean, I have a back in the early 2000s fond memories of mini clip games, addicting games, and all of those
Yeah.
early PC games that were, kind of similar vibes to a lot of these mini games that you can now create in minutes on your platform or with other game dev AI tools. It's
Did you
kind
have
of
any
like that hyper casual, addictive, uh, I mean, hyper casual is really the perfect
yeah.
description. Those you can just play and sit down and kind of compete with yourself on scores, but it doesn't get that much deeper. Which there's a huge market for that. Um, were you initially aiming for Remix to be like hyper casual focused? Were you aiming for something bigger, or how has that product like evolved over the years that you've been building it?
Yeah, so we ended up launching so it was originally called the Farcade, and we ended up launching that last December, exclusively on Farcaster. And the original idea there was a almost like it was like gonna be like a quasi trading gaming app. And so what was gonna happen is every game would launch using kind of like our in-house AI game studio where we were gonna build and launch a game. It was gonna be like a tokenized asset that you could buy and trade based on the popularity of the game, kind of within the platform. So it really had like a trading component on top of all of it. And kind of this like weird thing happened when we launched it. It really like blew up. I think we had 100,000 signups in like the first 48 hours or something with like zero marketing and never like it just like went very viral. And the one thing that was weird is like over the next few weeks when we did it was like my we showed it to my parents, and I've showed every app I've ever built to my parents, and they'll humor me, they'll like it, but like they never actually use the thing. And then I showed them Remix, and 2 or 3 weeks later I went home and saw them, and uh they were still playing. They had been playing Remix every single day. They loved all the mini games, and there's this moment where we felt like the Farcade had a potential to be something much bigger than just this crypto trading app. And really, felt like we were on the leading edge of this really a paradigm shift in mobile gaming, which was a hyper casual gaming arcade where all the games are built by the users on the platform. And it was something that was literally impossible even just over a year ago. Like the LLMs just were not good enough at writing code. They were not consistent enough. Like all the games would suck. They needed too much hand holding. And so we really pivoted the idea into something much bigger, which was really a social network around games or like a TikTok for games where all the games are built by the users and it's just an infinite arcade of all the games that just can be made just, at your fingertips.
Yeah. And for someone who doesn't know how to code, um, from my limited experience, what it takes to actually build a game is a general framework of like physics and mechanics. It takes some assets to visually show
Mhm.
on the screen. It takes some control settings, whether that be on mobile or desktop. And there's various AI models that can spin up those things pretty quickly now. The one I've been using is based on Claude, and it's the front end is called Cursor. Claude has their own thing called Claude Code. I haven't used that yet, but I know it's very popular. Directly through Grok or directly through Chat GPT, you can also spin up like initial game files fairly easily now as well. So as you guys have been building this product out, as these models have been improving and more have come onto the scene and more front ends have been built, what does that look like on your end as far as like your model you use to automate on your site? Have you switched between models? What are the strengths and weaknesses between some of them? I'd love to dive in there, but
Yeah, I mean, so when we first started this almost again exactly a year ago, we thought like the big advantage would be to take a model and like hyper train it to using Phaser, which is like an HTML JavaScript game engine. So we're like, why don't we take one of these LLMs, we'll like train it on a bunch of data, and then we'll use that as the model for people to build games, and we think it could do pretty well. And so that worked pretty well. And then all of a sudden, I think at the time it was like Claude 4, like one of the models, there was like a big step up in that model. And when we upgraded to that next model, that was light years better than all of the training we had just done on the previous model. And so it became one of those things where we realized that there's no amount of training in time you can spend iterating on these models that really is going to, I think, catch you up to just how good the next model is going to be, and that it's just better to just let our platform grow with those the next models that come out. And so right now on Remix, I think we've used probably 20 models over the last year. Right now we're using ChatGPT 5 as like our base model for our AI studio. And largely that's just because GPT-5 does I think a better job at drawing assets when it makes a game. So your games just like look and feel a little bit more sexy than I think Claude or Sonnet does. But I think Claude Code is a better way to actually code. I think Claude Code is a better interface for writing and creating code. ChatGPT 5 I think is a little bit better of a model at just actually creating stuff. And so it's like this weird um it's this weird environment right now where it's so competitive and every new model comes out that you kind of have to just be very open-minded to what's happening, and something that we try to be very model agnostic as a platform, and we try to just use whatever feels like it's producing the best results for our users and try not to be too um you know try like we don't want to like champion a single model or a single framework. We really just want to be pretty model agnostic.
yeah, and your system allows upload of external files, so definitely keeps that flexibility. You're not pigeonholing users to only using your model of choice. Um, my like game vibe coding journey looked something like this. I started when Grok started getting really good, and I saw a couple of people post little, like Galaga clones that they had made. I started toying with it, and so I had it make like there was an old mini clip game called Bubble Trouble. You moved side to side, you shot a little arrow up and hit bubbles and went through levels.
Yeah.
So I made like a clone of that. I ended up theming it to be like a meme of the Vance Zelensky meeting because it was like a viral meme. When the Vance meme started coming out, the Please token, I thought it'd
Oh
be a
yeah.
good viral moment for the theming for my first video game. So I started in Grok, I quickly realized was fairly limited in like file size and that sort of thing. And so I took that. I eventually, I think, moved to Cursor, and then Cursor allowed, more direct editing of specific sections of the code versus having to edit through the whole file every time and regenerate the entire file like Grok was doing. So now I kind of use a combination of Curse or Grok or ChatGPT to kind of ideate and create the requirements at the beginning, and then I use Cursor to like actually optimize the file and build out the game
Yeah,
from there.
that's like the pro move is to find it's like to use AI to help create a really good plan and then use that plan to feed back to AI to actually help build the thing. So,
Yeah,
and that's how like people who write software now, like our company is all staff engineers. I would say like AI is writing probably 90 to 95% of all the code that we write internally for our own apps. And a lot of what we do today is we just spend a lot of time writing plans and then we just send the AI off to go actually write the code. And then we spend a lot of time just reading and reviewing code. But I think that's, yeah, it's funny because you've just have learned the best way to write code right now, which is just to build plans, then use plans to build it. And a lot of people use that exact same framework, which is they'll use ChatGPT to build plans, and they use Claude Code to actually write the code.
yeah,
Again, it's whether you're vibe coding something fun, like just making a mini game, or if you're building a real app, that's how a lot of people are doing it right now.
yeah, exactly. And then I have, Mid Journey to like create mockups
Yeah.
for visuals or home screens or backgrounds and that sort of thing. So at this point, I probably have like 10 different $20 a month subscriptions that I need to cancel half of them for AI tools that I'm not using anymore. It gotten so
Dude,
ridiculous.
the SaaS stuff is getting so out of hand. It's I mean even just like, personally it's like all the AI stuff, then all the channel subscriptions. I just like went through my credit card the other day. I had like 7 different like Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN, Netflix. You just have like so many subscriptions that just start piling up. But then another really good image generation, I think it's called Nano Banana. It's something like that, but it's the Google's image generator. A lot of our developers are using that for like their sprite sheets and asset generations for their games, and that's a really good one.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, one of the things that I always just tell people too is, and something that I love about Remix is we opened up our studio in April. That was the first time we allowed people to start using our studio and launch their own games within Remix. Our goal was to get to one game a day. We were hoping to have one game launched every single day. Right now, we're launching about 5 or 6 games a day, so we're ahead of schedule of like how many games are getting created, and it's been really cool watching the trajectory of like the quality of games that are getting launched. Like on average, like the bar is already getting so high for the floor, and it's just only going to get better. Like it's AI is already so good, and this is the worst it will ever be. Like it's only going to get like night and day better over the next couple of years. So it's just going to be so crazy to see what's going to happen over the next couple of years with AI generation.
Yeah. And for someone in the audience that maybe hasn't dove into Remix or any of these AI tools yet, you see, tons of games published on your platform every day now. What are some like the traits of the best games that you find are the most fun? And maybe from the someone starting out's perspective, like what are some of those gotchas that you've run into that they could avoid, and like whether that be the stack of tools or maybe that specific prompting techniques, like any beginner tips to help get somebody started?
Uh, Yeah, I mean, so hopefully we're spending a lot of time on our studio right now to hopefully implement a lot of these fixes to make people's lives easier. But I think some of the big gotchas are just like being too vague up front and like trying to do too much in like the first single prompt. I think like you were talking about, like taking the time to try to build a game design document or a plan will make your life so much better. Like the more you can have a really thoughtful first thing to go interact with like the AI when it starts building your game, just the more just it'll just be a much better experience because the AI just has a lot better understanding of what it's going to make. And so taking the time to you can literally just go to ChatGPT if I and just say, I want to build a mini game. Can you help me build a game design document that I can use as a plan or something like that? And it'll do a really good job of building everything that you need for just a template that you can then go copy paste to Remix to build a game or to other places to build your game. So that's one of those. And then as far as like when you actually start prompting AI, I mean, one of like the easiest, like best things you can do is if like you get a bad output, don't try to like fix the output, just like delete it and start over and like do it again. Sometimes it just can be so helpful just to throw away what it tried and just like start fresh. Like if it like went too far off the rails or like you really hated the first one, just delete it and try again instead of like trying to like get it to update it. Sometimes it's way better with just a fresh piece of paper as opposed to just like trying to make all the small iterations because that can be really tedious. And I think that's the part that is like hard when you're building is just being patient too. Like sometimes it just takes a lot of prompting, and sometimes it takes finding the right way of saying something to get the AI to finally understand how to change the code because it's very frustrating when you're like, "Hey, fix this bug," and then it says, "Absolutely, here you go, I fixed the bug," and then you still have the bug. You're like, "You asshole, you did not fix it.
Yeah.
Go back and fix the bug." And so I think like patience and like trying to find ways to reword stuff, but prompting is like a very real skill, and I think building a game is a very good way to learn how to prompt AI and build docs and build plans, and I think it's a very valuable skill set to take kind of anywhere you go.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so yeah, and by the way, live chat, if you have any questions, drop questions in the chat and we can either save them for the end or I'll be reading as we're going here. So any questions are welcome, even if they're noob questions, but we're all noobs here at some point. I've literally made like 3 games at this point, but I've only adjusted about 5 lines of the code, so I can't even say I'm a game dev. I'm definitely a vibe game dev, which I
Well,
can
I
I
think
can claim.
I just think it's like this weird point in time, like I just again, like I just told you, I've been coding for 10 years and I write very little code day to day now. Like it's so much of my day is just prompting and planning and reading. And it definitely helps being able to know that stuff, but we're just LLMs are just getting so good. And this is just I am so convinced that this is where the future is heading. The same way I was convinced about blockchain and crypto and Ethereum 10 years ago was all the smartest people I know, especially even in engineering. I think engineers get a little defensive because they don't want their skill set to go away. But by and large, most of them know they have to use these tools because your just output is so much higher. And so I think like it might feel like it's cheap because or like you're cheating because you don't actually know how to write code, but I don't think you really need to know it. It's totally fine. Like you're still producing the things that are interesting, and that's really all that matters is you're going to create something. If you can create a game that's really fun and compelling, seem like a game developer to me.
It helps you learn a bit too, because if it outputs something that you want to tweak slightly, you can say, hey, where in the code can I change this? And they'll give you the line. And then you could, change the pixel width of something or the positioning of something manually. So if you've never coded before, it's kind of a good step by step learning tool to actually start coding a bit too. And the
Yeah.
AI tools are very good at making that easy for you, because if you mess something up, they can fix it for you, but you can also make manual edits if you want to not use all your AI credits.
Yeah. Well, I think we're still in like the dial-up phase of AI LM software. Like, when back with like Net Zero and Netscape and stuff, when web pages used to load like top to bottom and you'd get like the blurry image first and you have to wait for like the real image to download. Um, I think we're just like in that era of AI right now where everything is so expensive and so slow, but it's going to be like comical that we even used to have to wait for stuff here in like another year, honestly. Like the fact that we're gonna have like Sora's live generating video, like that is so much more astronomically complicated than writing text, like building a game. And so I think some of the stuff is just like, if this is slow and tedious now, just give it 6 months. It's gonna be completely different.
Yeah, definitely. I do want to get hands on in these sessions. So I actually have been working on a game. I haven't revealed it yet over the past couple days.
Oh,
I know you saw me
hell yeah.
yesterday in the Discord, Chuck, asking for help on something. Um, so I do have a game. It's called Rooftop Assassin. Um, so full transparency, this was heavily inspired by a game that I saw you and Sam post in the last couple of days talking about the new Twitter preview. It was a golf platformer. And so he
Hmm.
shot a ball across platforms and it fell in a little hole. I ripped the base physics of that game, but I made it an assassination game. So instead,
That's
you're
sick.
throwing a hatchet at a person standing on the platform.
That's so
Um,
cool. That's
so you can bounce it off any surfaces. if the blade hits in just the right way, it'll stick to a surface too. And then, oh, there we go. Try to get him in. Nope. And then it counts your throws. You can see at the top, it shows number of throws. It gives you a certain number of points depending on how quick you are with your throws, kind of like a golf score. And then there's power ups on the map as well to pick up like a bow and arrow and that sort of thing. So this
This
is
is
my
so
game.
sick.
I'm going to retire off of this, obviously. But just to show you guys, like, I spent probably, I don't know, 3 hours dialing this in, mostly in cursor. And then I took it to the Remix platform, copy and pasted the code, which is just a single HTML file, and then hit save. And the game automatically played in the Remix UI. The only manual thing I had to do, which I'm not sure where they're not showing, they were before, but I dropped a few of the image assets I had in here so that the axe, the stick figure, the background image on the home page all loaded in. And I asked the AI to make sure that they were using the asset URLs. So that was like the only manual step I had to make to get the game working on Remix. So then once you're
That's
there, you click launch steps and it takes you through a few different steps, like adding in a little Farcaster SDK thing, adding game title and icon, and then you hit submit. I have not actually submitted a game yet. This would be my first one, so hopefully this isn't rejected right off the bat, but I think it's fun at least. So once it's up, I can share it with the live chat and you guys can play it on the toilet, like B Crumbs was saying, a nice hyper casual toilet game for you.
that that's so sick. And I actually shared in our chat on Discord. I shared a link if you want to share that in the
Sure.
Twitch. That's well, someone from our community basically made a web page, and he's one of our really good builders. But he basically made like a boilerplate template if you use Claude or Cursor. He basically has it all set up so it like works within our ecosystem and then tells you how to like upload the game and do all that stuff really quickly. So if you're more advanced and you're not using our AI game studio and you're using something like Cursor and Claude Code, that link is really really cool because it's a really good template. But that game is sick, dude. I can't wait to play that.
Yeah,
The
I
physics
mean,
look really good on
I
it.
played that mini golf game and the physics just were so satisfying with like the
Yeah,
arc trajectory, and it paints the trajectory, and then when you die it keeps the previous one so you can slightly
yeah.
adjust it. It's so smooth. And so I remembered a mini clip game from back in the day. It was some sort of assassination thing with stick figures. It was a lot more violent than I made this, but like, you could like shoot stick figures and throw axes and stuff, and it would like chop off limbs. And it's just a funny animation with blood coming out of a stick figure. And so,
So good.
yeah, for some reason that popped into my mind with the golf game. I don't know what's wrong with me, but
I mean, we haven't enabled it yet, and some games can, but that's the whole idea of the word remix is this idea of like you saw the sketch golf game, and ideally the future becomes where you just tap a remix button, you get to use that game exactly as it is as a template, and then you can say switch out the assets with the axes, add this type of power up, and like then you can just immediately reshare that game as this new version of that type of game because that's how a lot of gaming is. It's just this idea plus one or two creative spins on it, which usually makes it a whole new fun experience. Like that game looks really fun, and I'm very excited to try because it's just those are the types of games I love now. Especially the older I get, the more busy I get. I as much as I want to download World of Warcraft again, I just I think it would be a death sentence for Remix. I think we would run out of money very quickly and not be shipping nearly as much code. So I got to find games that are more hyper casual and easy for me to play on the move. That game looks super fun, man. I can't, and that took you 3 hours? Is that how long you said?
yeah, and that was with, I mean, the main game was really fast. It was like
Yeah.
tweaking where the platforms are spawning, difficulty progression, because they're randomly generated levels. It'll go on forever. And so getting it so the platform spacing actually was like correctly blocking the trajectory to make it harder. Those things to dial in took a bit. Um, but one tip as you're playing at these AI tools, there are things called context windows where the AI is remembering everything you've been talking to it about, remembering the code that it's writing. And so once you you basically run out of your context window, the AI is coming in like they just joined the chat and they have no idea what's going on. So you can hit a point where it's like starting to get dumber. And so in Cursor, at least, they recommend starting a new chat window, and you can just re-ask the AI like, "Hey, review your own code, learn what you wrote," and so then you can kind of restart that context window, and they get less dumb. I'm sure there's a more technical way to explain that, but that's kind of how it feels from the end user perspective, at least.
That's I mean, that's exactly what's happening. That's actually a very good way to describe it, which is it's funny because like the more it gets, all of a sudden it does feel like it gets more dumb because it doesn't like it starts confusing itself based on like prior conversation and all the code updates. And if you do that for too long when you're writing software, all of a sudden like you'll have your game and then you'll ask for an update and then it'll like rewrite your game to like 3 or 4 versions ago because like it has that in its context window still. So like it'll like confuse itself and almost like completely undo the work that it's done. So it's always a good pro tip to like if you get to a part that's like satisfying is to like actually start a new chat and try to like restart it with just like the most minimal information you can. So it's
Yeah.
not doing too much in a single session.
So that was the route I took, starting with Cursor, importing it, and then making a few edits to make it work with Remix, and then I'm close to my submission. Um, Once you do submit, what's that like publication review process like?
Yeah, so that was like a pretty conscious decision at the start was we saw this platform that anybody can post all the games are just going live and then you just have natural filtration similar to any social network where uh yeah, people it's determined whether it's good or not just by everyone playing with the game. But something we noticed with a lot of these arcade platforms was they went, I think, too wide too quickly. And then the first user experience as you get there and all the games suck or they don't work and nothing's fun. And so right out of the gate, we were like, I think we should manually review every game and make sure at least they're working. We try not to make judgments on whether they're good or not, unless they're very, very bad, like frustratingly bad. We'll say this doesn't pass, but we review every game to make sure it works. It submits scores properly. It has like some of the basic integrations with our platform, and then it goes live. And it usually goes live within probably like an hour if everything's good.
Very nice. And then once your game is up, like how can people play it? If you get a certain number of plays, is there a monetization involved? Like how does it work once you what can you do with your game once it's published, basically?
Yeah, so once your game's live, unfortunately, we're working on like some more ways for developers to have more input into getting shares. Like right now, a lot of sharing happens just from sharing in our Discord or sharing on social channels. But if you don't have a following, that's unfortunate. Like that's not helpful for you. So we're adding more features to get your game visibility, basically through things like hosting tournaments or just pay for distribution just to get it in front of people. But basically, one of the big things you want out of your game is you want to get it to graduate. And graduation is just that it's been played by 200 people and it has been, positive ratings. And if it has a positive ratings after those 200 people, it basically graduates. And the cool part about that is when it graduates, it actually unlocks achievements. And so then when people go play your game, we automatically add achievements for it, and people can start going collecting those achievements. And that's really what makes a lot of the games like blow up on our platform. Is like once they graduate, they really go from like I think they kind of just like hover along, and then once they graduate, they just will like skyrocket in terms of like popularity. They get onto the home feeds, they're more discoverable. So like after you publish, that's like the goal, and so it's trying just to share it in the channels that you have, but we're working on adding features to make that better because I think that's one of the more um, I think it's one of the harder parts, especially if you don't have a following, is just trying to get those first users. And so we want to give more tools to developers to try and get more awareness for their game.
Gotcha. On the
But
recent
did that?
graduates tab, you see like 50 Pudgy Penguins games because there was a recent, what'd you call it, a game jam where you were
Yeah.
taking their IP and had a prize pool for the best games out of that. Um, what was your favorite Pudgy Penguin game jam game?
Um, I mean, there were some really good ones. They did some of them were just so polished. One of them was just like an ice cream simulator where basically like you sit there and then people come in like pudgy penguins come in and you have to serve them ice cream, and like they have different types of orders, and so you have to like fill out their orders really quickly. I forget what there's some really popular games in that genre. Someone made a really cool 3D one where you're on a platform and you're running around in like a 3D space. It's kind of like 2.5D, and you have to like slide through these blocks that are on the ground. It's kind of like a Fall Guys-esque game. And then there's another one which is like a platformer where you have to collect fish jumping on the platformer. There's some that were just super super creative and really fun. So, but yeah, that was a big game jam we just did. So there's a lot of penguins on our platform right now.
One question from the chat from Crasher asked, where do you host these games once you have the code dialed in? So, like, obviously, Remix is one option for publication and then having a distribution platform. Um, Outside of Remix, what are the options for people?
Yeah, so one really cool thing which I didn't quite get into is remix games are just single HTML files, which kind of makes them playable universally. And so a really cool thing about when they're hosted on Remix is they're instantly playable on Farcaster, Telegram, World App, the Base app, and now they're actually playable through X. With X on iOS, they launched this new like links feature where you can actually play our games essentially inside the X feed, which is really really cool. And so they're available anywhere when you publish them to Remix, but they're just hosted because they're static HTML. They're just kind of deployed and hosted on a Cloudflare bucket. But I think there's definitely we're talking with like Arweave and some other like decentralized providers where we're talking about almost like putting these things on chain so they're playable for forever. Because again, they're just HTML files, and so they really should be playable for forever.
Yeah.
But that's how the hosting works. But it is like a very cool part about our platform is, maybe you played Remix on Farcaster, maybe you play the mobile app and you make your game, and your game might go viral on the World app of Remix. And so it's a really cool thing that you might not even know we have a mini app on World app, but that's where your game is going viral. And so we want to give as much distribution to the creators as possible. And a problem we're trying to solve for creators is just having your game everywhere because we think that's like such a cool thing about making these browser games.
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. And having the format as a single HTML file, yeah, it's pretty easy to find places to host these. When I spun up my initial game, I don't I don't think I even knew about Remix back in March and April yet, but I published the files on my GitHub. The GitHub
Yeah.
generated a public link. Then you could just post the public link and play in any browser. But when you're working on an HTML file locally, you can just open it in your browser, and it's pretty easy to test out features. You just refresh the page as you make a change to the file. Pretty simple. So it shouldn't
Yeah.
scare you away as a non-dev. It's just a couple step process. And any of these AI models can literally write out the steps for you. So you say, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing. How do I test this file? And it'll tell you exactly how. Um, we talked about like importing code and then making some changes in your tool to get it published. But you can start from scratch here on the Remix platform. So you said it's using ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Um, is there a certain format you recommend posting the initial prompts? Obviously, you leave it a bit open ended and like a very not scary looking prompt field here, but what should people be thinking of like at the beginning? Is it like a full spec list or is it more high level? What are your recommendations?
Yeah, so here we're trying to show how simple it can be. Like, I think the reality is a lot of people graduate into your experience, which is a lot of people will create their first game on Remix, but then they very often will then go to Claude or Cursor, or they just need some more control over their environment. And so this is trying to show you like what can you get with a very simple prompt. But a really cool thing we're working on right now is you'll actually start with your general prompt, like maybe I want to create a Space Invaders game. And then you'll actually get taken through a workflow where we'll help you design like a game document where we'll actually use AI to basically say like, oh, you want a Space Invaders game? Cool. What kind of art style do you want? Like, what kind of features do you want? Do you want power ups? Do you want shields? Should there be enemies? And we basically help you design what is a game design document. And then we'll use that to actually help go build the game. So that's something that we're working on so that hopefully you can just come here and start with the most simple prompt you can. And we'll take the time to actually help go through and make something that is a little bit better and going to get you a better game. And so, yeah, so we're trying to show both sides of the platform, which is get you excited to show you that like it really is that easy, but then at the same time, we want to make it so not only is it that easy to make a game, but we want to make it really hard to make a bad game is something that we're really focusing on. Is we want everybody to have that really killer first experience because I think even with our platform right now, it runs into a lot of hiccups. It's pretty brittle. Like there's a lot of complexity with AI because it's kind of a black box when you work with it. And so we're really trying to make that experience better because I think there's a lot of room for improvement on our own studio.
Yeah, and Remix has its own iOS app, so any of these games can also be played on iOS, which is kind
Yeah.
of the format that they're intended for in the vertical, is that 3x2 format. Um,
Yeah.
and most people, when they think of hyper casual, think of playing it on a phone these days. Back in the mini clip days, phones couldn't handle that quite yet, but um, now that's where the primary target audience is, I would say. So having it automatically published to iOS is one of the major benefits of using Remix, I would say, versus like having to spin up a full Swift game app or however it works from the dev side.
Well, yeah, getting the game into Apple is painful. You know, you have to like it takes a long goddamn time to get an app published in the App Store. You have to fill out so many forms and do all this stuff, and then the review can take weeks. And so, hopefully, this is just a really cool way to get to that end result, which is I have this really fun idea for an assassin game where I'm just throwing axes at people. But how do I get that in front of people? And that's really what we're trying to solve for is there's so much creativity that has been hamstrung by a lack of knowing how to write software or a lack of engineering skills, and that's just going away. And so we think there's just going to be like a renaissance of gaming and gaming creativity because gaming has almost become formulaic. You kind of have to stay within the bounds of what we know is successful. And so we really aren't seeing a ton of innovation in the gaming space because if you've raised money to build a game, people can't really venture too far off the beaten path. Like unless you're Gabe Layden or a world-renowned game designer, you kind of have to stay within the framework. And it's the same thing is kind of happening with Hollywood, is we're just in sequel after sequel after like reboot. And it's because when you put $100 million or $500 million into a movie, you aren't allowed to really explore that much. But when games are now being built by a single person in days or hours or even minutes, it's going to be a whole different ballpark for creating new experiences and new games and new content. So that's what I'm really excited about, and that's really what we're trying to solve for those people. Is I have this idea. It's probably just a fun, silly game, and I don't want to have to figure out how to launch an iOS app. I don't want to have to figure out how servers work, but I just want to build a game and then get it in front of people.
Yeah. I nod my head here as I reskinned someone else's game and basically created a sequel, but we'll ignore that for
No,
now.
no, but no, but that's like I think that's a beautiful part of Remix and what like we're trying to accomplish here, which is like that's how a lot of gaming should be. Is like a lot of gaming is like these really quick iterations on ideas that exist, but I also want to see like a bunch of new ideas come into existence. Like I think like your game probably would never have been made over a year ago because no one's going to take the time or money to do it. It's going to take you 6 months to learn how to write that software and build that code. Like that would have taken you to get from start to finish, that would have taken almost half a year. It took you 3 hours to bring this idea to life. And so that's really where we're going. And so that's what's really exciting about what I think is the future of gaming. It's just this iteration speed and the creativity that's going to come from it.
Yeah. And it wouldn't be Neo Tokyo live stream without asking about crypto integration. So I know you have a lot of backing from Base. Are there any blockchain integrations? Is this completely off chain? Like, what is there any crypto involvement here with your product?
At this second, other than just like on-chain social from Farcaster, no, and just being on those products, but that's changing very, very soon. One of the big things that has been missing from the platform is just on-chain monetization. Uh, that all is going to be like we're starting to roll that out in like the next couple weeks, and so that's going to be like how all the creators are rewarded on the platform. It's how creators can be build shops and items and aesthetics. All of that stuff will be on chain, and so that's where a lot of that stuff is coming. We went like I mean we always spiked out a lot of this stuff about 4 or 5 months ago, we basically were looking into doing like this launch pad for essentially like creator coins on our platform, which we were calling like studio coins at the time. And it just became one of those things where some of our best creators on the platform, like one of the most popular games is called GeoCrush, which was actually built by my co-founder and I's our older sister. She built this game called GeoCrush because she's a Candy Crush addict and wanted a Candy Crush game on our platform. And it's been one of our most popular games, and I really want her to have tools to help her monetize. And so we kind of shied away from this idea of like forcing creators to have to like launch a token. Like I think that's didn't really feel quite aligned with the people that were having builders, and especially since we have like younger kids building on the platform. It's like I don't really know if I want like a kid launching tokens on our platform. Like that's seems like too much for them. But uh, in the very near term, you'll be able to buy tokens on our platform. You'll use those tokens, which will basically be like the base currency for all spending across all of the mini games, across all of the apps. It'll be like how tournaments work, and all that stuff is going to be this base unit of currency. Um, the really cool part is when we launch our platform token, that will be basically like our remix token. A really cool part is that all of the transacting that happens will basically have like programmatic buybacks into like our platform token called Remix. And so it's really cool that when all this stuff comes on chain, similar to something like you can kind of think of like all of our games almost creating like their own mini OpenSea on Remix. If like all these games are creating items and assets, anytime someone transacts, it's automatically go back into like buying and burning our own platform token. So that's like the future of where we're going, which is just enabling creators to have these tools to like essentially just monetize their games. And we're going to do all the on-chain complexity for them. So you don't have to know how contracts work. You don't have to do any of that. But everything you're doing is going to be going on chain. And that's going to be like the main way that you monetize and like transact throughout the ecosystem.
Interesting. Okay, you heard it here first. You guys can buy a founder's axe for only 1 ETH.
Hell yeah. I love it.
And you get, every skin of the different stick figures going forward.
Yes, I mean, so that's what we're trying to solve for right now is like inevitably hyper casual games are not meant to have super long shelf life. And so we're trying to marry these like two concepts, which is how do we help people monetize games with something that is long lasting when the content is short form. And so we're looking into like different models, which again, I think you start favoring things that are more like creator focused or like what we're calling like studio focused versus like single game focused where if I buy the founders axe, maybe it's not only just that founders axe for that game, but now it's like this premium bonus in your next game or early access to this thing. And so that's what we're trying to figure out. I think that's it's a whole new paradigm, so we're taking our time to explore what we think is going to work.
Love it. Cool. Any last minute questions in the chat? Feel free to drop them now and we can take a look. But while we wait for those to trickle in, Chuck, any like upcoming updates or things that you're really excited about people should know about as we wrap up here?
Yeah, I mean, we have a really cool new game coming out, the Assassin's Leap or Rooftop Assassin. So keep an eye out for Rooftop Assassin. It honestly looks sick.
This
It
one
looks
better
so
be
good.
homepage featured.
Yeah.
Just
Oh yeah,
kidding.
we'll get this as yeah, we'll have this be the daily game for sure. The daily game is like that's the premium like Twitch homepage spot right now that we offer. But I mean, the big thing for us is if you have iOS, would love for you to check out the Remix app and just see what we're doing. I think the really big thing that we're doing is monetization, and if you have any interest in creating your game or launching a game, I think our Discord is an amazing place. It's really just like builder focused for helping you learn how to build these games. And we really think we're building one of the best places for vibe coders and people to like get their first audience. Some of our creators have made tens of thousands of dollars already this year on our platform launching games. And a lot of that is just rev share from these game jams we've done like game jams with Pudgy. We just announced a game jam with VFriends. We have another really, really big game jam coming later this month. And then we're working on like a world class IP partnership that we hope works out here in the next month or so. But yeah, so I think there's a lot that we're doing, and I think we're building something like that's grows way beyond the bounds of Web3, and would love for you guys to be a part of it, or at least just check us out and keep an eye on what we're doing.
Love it. Well, Neo Tokyo has a history of some mini games, so I would love to see those recreated in some way on the Remix app. See if you guys can create UAEC Escape or Ascend to the Citadel. So maybe a game jam is in our future. We can talk about that on the side.
Oh, I love that. We should definitely do game jams because we're looking to do all that fun stuff. And yeah, if you have mini games, it's a great place to do it.
Awesome. All right. I don't think there's any more questions here in the chat, but thank you to Fractilians, B Crumbs, Dylan, Red Baron, Grumpy, Fav, Crasher. A lot of citizens showed up today. So thanks for your time, Chuck, and we'll be asking you to promote our games here shortly.
I'd love to do it. All right. Thanks so much for having me, man.
All right. See you, Chuck. Thanks.
All right, see ya.
All right. I'll see you guys later.